Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are back with another of these Zhong Jieming Toys figures, and this time we've got ourselves a herbivore as we have the Sinoceratops. And this one is pretty cool looking. It definitely has that Jurassic World style to it. Again, these figures overall are kind of Mattel-like as far as the way that they're created, you know, with the articulation, and they also have similar action features with buttons in similar spots to the Mattel figures. So they are very similar to the Jurassic World line style figures, just a good bit smaller than you usually see, at least for species like this. When it comes to the box art, it's pretty much the same as it usually is. You can see a nice shot of Rexy for no reason whatsoever over here kind of coming out of the box, and then you can see some pretty cool images there in the background, kind of a prehistoric looking landscape. Of course, the Sinoceratops itself, some stuff I cannot read unfortunately. And then as we move around, just like the other box, you know, for the Ceratosaurus we had taken a look at, you can see that we have random shots of that ceratopsian throughout the entire thing. I can also see the tail of the Sinoceratops has actually broken through the side of the box, which is pretty humorous. And then here on the back again, the shot of all of these random Jurassic World dinosaurs. So let's go ahead, pop the box open and check it out. So here is our Sinoceratops now out of the packaging. And honestly, again, these figures continue to kind of impress me. Even though they're definitely not the greatest figures around, there's no question about that, they still have just a little bit more of a higher quality feel than these type of figures usually do. And I think that's just been impressing me as I kind of go along with these, you know, outside of the screw hole thing going on. You know, which is never a great thing, but the figures just overall have a little bit of a higher quality feel to them compared to what I'm used to when it comes to getting these type of figures from AliExpress. So it's something that's been actually quite impressive to me, is the fact that these, again, aren't that bad as far as figures go. But as you go ahead and get a nice closer look, you can see the head sculpt very much so is very clearly based on the Jurassic World version of a Sinoceratops. There's no doubt about that. When you look at the figure, you can overall see, again, especially when it comes to the frill area and the holes through the frill, but also just generally everything about it, like the shape of the frill and everything, is very Jurassic World-ish as far as the sculpt goes. Now this one, you know, you might look at it and think, well, is this a bootleg of the Mattel version? No, it definitely isn't. You can really tell that just looking at it. But there is a different version of a Sinoceratops that is on the market that I see often from different companies in China that all seem to share the same kind of sculpt, and that is a very Jurassic World style Sinoceratops as well. And I feel like this is basically that figure, but they've now articulated it and given it very different colorations. So I actually do have a review up on the channel for that Sinoceratops, so I will include a link in the description. I no longer have that one out. I put that one in storage a long time ago, so there's no accessing that one right now, but I do believe this is a figure that is kind of reminiscent to that one. Probably the same sculpt, just now again articulated and given an action feature and stuff. But you can see the detail in the face looks okay. Definitely a little generic, you know, it's not as highly detailed as we get for a lot of figures nowadays, especially when it comes to like the skin texture here in the face, around the nose and everything. Doesn't look that great, but it looks all right. You can see the eyes are painted with like a red-orange, maybe a little more orange than red-orange, and you can see a black pupil there. We can also see a light tan or a light brown for the beak, and the beak does have some detail to it, which is pretty cool. Same deal for the horn up here. You can see some cracks and crevices within the horn, which is nice, and as you lead up, you can see these horns are painted as well, and same deal as you move around the frill, which again is nice to see that there is quite a bit of paintwork on the figure. Again, when you look at something like this and you think, well, what needs to be painted on a Ceratopsian? Some companies, like Mattel, don't often care, but you can very clearly see that they went ahead and gave this figure the paintwork that it probably needed to look at least half decent. The only area that is very obviously missing paint that should have had paint is right here, but it kind of looks like, oh, I guess there is a little bit of paint. It's like they just gave it a quick once-over maybe with the airbrush, so it's not perfectly painted. They definitely could have done a better job, but it does have a little bit of paint on it. You can see a little extra material there kind of hanging off of it as well. But there is a black that moves through the face, basically from the nostrils up through the eye socket and up into the frill. You can also see a white that kind of outlines that a little bit. You see that same sort of coloration as you move up higher into the frill. You can see a brown circling around those open areas of the frill as well. And again, a grayish tone for the majority of the body color. Very kind of rocky scaling as we move up into the frill of this figure, which again looks okay. Definitely has a decent look to it overall, and the paintwork is fairly smooth and definitely nicely done. There's not much as far as sloppiness that I can see in the face of this one. As you move back into the body, the skin texture continues to have pretty much the same sort of a look, where it looks somewhat generic but not terrible, I guess. We basically have just a skin textured look through the course of the figure, and it's also kind of littered with osteoderms and stuff. You can really see them moving down into the legs, but nothing as far as the detailing on the figure is overly impressive. You know, it basically just looks kind of like standard, somewhat generic looking detailing through pretty much the entire figure. The scale detail on the back of the frill does look kind of cool, but again, it's nothing to really rave about. It just looks okay for what it is. But as you move down, you can see that the toes are sculpted out, and we do have nails painted, which is a plus. They have kind of like a glossy black for the nails. They're a little bit sloppy, but not too bad. You do have articulation in the legs as well, which is fun. That's about as far back as this leg can go, but it can go pretty far forward. And then as you move back, you have articulation in the rear leg. It can go about that far forward, and actually couldn't go pretty far back, all the way up there, back behind the figure, which is nice. But you can see pretty much the same look for the rear leg as far as the detailing goes. Again, it's definitely not going to win any awards when it comes to the detailing aspect. And you can see again the nails and everything on the rear foot back here. And then as you move back, you do have a swivel for the tail, so a little extra articulation. The coloration for the figure primarily is a gray, and then as you move up into the back, you have a lighter gray and a blue that just kind of like absolutely jumbles all over the place back here, patterning all the way out into the tail. And the coloration does run the entire length out there onto the tail, which of course is definitely a great thing that not everybody does. But when you take a look at the opposing side, it's going to look pretty much the same as what we had seen on the first side. You can see again the only real difference would be the positioning of the legs and screw holes. We've got 4 screw holes that I can see on this side, and again the legs are just a little bit closer together because of the way the dinosaur is standing. You also have leg articulation on this side, again forward and back, not back all that far though, and then again same deal for the rear leg, which that leg as well can actually go back pretty far. We also, on top of everything, have an action feature. So just like the Mattel figures, there's a button here on the back, and it doesn't have much going on, but when you press the button, you can see that we've got kind of like a head rearing up, sort of attacking strike for our Sinoceratops, which looks okay. It's just not really all that powerful, and I can recall the Ceratosaurus not really having all that powerful of a bite either. But as far as a size goes, for a length, you are looking at around 8.5 inches or around 21.5 centimeters. And then for a height, to the top of the frill, about 4 inches or a little over 10 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Sinoceratops. And you can see again, it's not huge by any means, definitely not near the size of the Mattel Sinoceratops. As you can see, it's just a little bit bigger than a standard kind of Danger Pack figure. For another comparison, we also have a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus, which you can see are pretty close to being of a similar size, but just a little bit smaller. And then one more comparison to kind of give you an idea of a size next to your standard sized Mattel Ceratopsian. And obviously it's not the Sinoceratops, but the Sinoceratops is the same size as the Triceratops. So you can see again that the Zhong Jieming Toys version is quite a bit smaller than your average Mattel Ceratopsian. So this brand new Sinoceratops from Zhong Jieming Toys is kind of fun, but still not that great. Again, I am still impressed with the fact that it does have a little bit of a heavier kind of high quality feel to it, but still it's not the highest quality figure in the world. Like you can tell just with that comparison with the Mattel Triceratops, how far and away different the figures are as far as the fine detail goes. The Mattel figures are very impressive when it comes to their actual sculpts and fine details, whereas the Zhong Jieming Toys figures aren't really that impressive. At least this one is. I feel like the Ceratosaurus was a little more impressive, but this one definitely is a bit more on the generic side when it comes to the skin texture. So overall, it's definitely not the highest quality sculpt. It does have that Jurassic World look to it, which is pretty fun. Again, if you are partial to the Jurassic World version of the Sinoceratops, this one could be a fun figure to have in your herd of ceratopsians, in your herd of Sinoceratops, again, if you have some Mattel versions, as there are a few out, but it also could be a fun figure to repaint, even though the coloration and paintwork we have for it is okay. Again, it's fairly naturalistic, decent as far as the application of the paint. There is a good bit of color from head to tail on the figure, and does have that fully painted feel, which is a plus. Definitely a good thing for this figure. It does have articulation as well. Not the greatest articulation or the smoothest, but it seems to work a little better than the Ceratosaurus articulation. It does also have an action feature, which is pretty much exactly as you would expect for a species like this. It doesn't really have a whole lot of force or anything behind it, but it is just, again, something that certainly does enhance the figure a little bit, at least as far as playability. So if you are interested in this, I will include a link in the description to where you can pick this one up and add it to your collection right now. So make sure you check that link. Go grab this Sinoceratops if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.